All right, hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the Jesse Lee Falls podcast. Today I wanted to put a video together. I wanted to call this "A Word to the Wise." Get off your asses, because I'm gonna beat you to the punch. And it's not meant to be, I'm not trying to be disagreeable with that comment. What I'm trying to do is invoke a little bit of competitive spirit in you guys. I'm going to talk about some things that I've been up to. Uh, on a couple episodes ago, I talked about how I decided to steer away from drinking altogether. And I'm basically taking a 1 year challenge to show you guys what kind of progress and what kind of production rate and just what my production level increase is going to be like for the next year. So I'm going to go into some of that, but I kind of want to get back to my original point, which is I'm trying to invoke a little bit of competitive spirit in you guys, because I think that what happens with musicians is we tend to get a little bit complacent, and we will start getting down on ourselves if we're not making enough money, if we're not being productive enough, or if we don't feel like we're productive enough. Obviously this isn't a message. I mean, if you've got a band that's functioning well, like, more power to you. It's great. Uh, uh, I don't really have a whole lot of business advice to any band or musician who's doing it and doing it well. So this podcast really isn't, and I would say most of these episodes aren't really geared towards people who are already like doing it and doing it well. They found a business model that's working for them. But this is really more towards, people who are even doing it well still get down on themselves. And we do measure how well we're doing in something with, we have to measure it with a value. The value is a lot of times measured to a dollar amount, and that can be somewhat discouraging at times. But basically, what I'm trying to do is get you guys to get off your asses. And I'm going to talk about some things that I've been doing, and I want to show you guys what kind of a progress rate, just what kind of, first of all, extremely motivated. And it's only been, I think I'm like 6 weeks. It's been like 6 or 7 weeks. I don't know. I think like 6 weeks. I'm losing track of, I'm not even counting anymore, The first 2 weeks you definitely count. The first 3-4 weeks you definitely count. But after that, I don't know. It's like, who cares? I'm not going back to it. So it's like, why? What am I count? There's no reason to count, and that feels pretty good. I actually feel like I'm, being freed of that. Just the need to feel like I even have to drink a 24 ouncer at the end of the night. Just even little things like that, But anyways, my whole point to this is we're going to hit these walls. We're going to hit brick walls sometimes with our music and with our music careers. And I want you guys to keep something in mind. I want you guys to remember that you're in music because you're a creative person. You're a creative soul. And I think something that I've started to do is that if I feel like I'm hitting a brick wall with music, or with the, maybe it's like, maybe I'm not getting as many gigs coming in as I want, but then again, I'm not really seeking them out either. It's like, what are you going to do? You can't bitch about that. So when we feel like we're hitting a brick wall with music, that might be a sign that we need to maybe pivot and do something else creative. And I'm not saying that you abandon this creative project you got going on here. You don't abandon it, but I think it says something about, like, when we're learning our instrument, like when you're learning guitar or when you're learning bass or something like that, or drums. When you practice something, you can practice something, and then you kind of hit this threshold where it's like you're not going to take it in anymore, and you have to actually walk away from it. And then when you come back to it, you pick the guitar up again, and you know it even better. And then you exhaust that potential again. You run it into the ground, you exhaust it, and then you put it down, and then you come back to it. And that's how you grow. And I think that that's to be said for even just the way our music careers grow organically, is that there's going to be times, there's going to be these break periods for that growth to kind of happen, because what we're doing is we're putting the effort out into the world, and then we're letting the world kind of do the other part, which is, and you have to just get out of the way for that to happen. You have to just, I think that's maybe where the faith part comes in. Like, you got to have faith in yourself, right? I mean, like, you got to say what I'm doing is valid and of value, and I'm putting it out there because it's a value. Even if I'm standing in a field alone, which is actually the definition of integrity. So, anyways, getting back to just the idea, when we hit these brick walls with music, well, don't forget you're a creative person, and music is just a business, and you can pivot into another business, another creative venture, and you can do that simultaneously. We don't have to keep telling ourselves that we have to pigeonhole ourselves into just being a band, just being a musician. Being an entrepreneur is not you going around buying yourself a bunch of jobs, basically. What I mean by that is, if you're the one out there doing the labor and the work, then you're not really an entrepreneur. You own a job. You own your job. That's basically a better definition of it, because being an entrepreneur is when you invest money and put money out there, and you have money that's out there in the world, and it's working for you. So you're not there. You're I guess kind of think of it like quantum physics, right? You're putting yourself in more than one place at one time. So that's being an entrepreneur. And I want you guys to you guys got to start telling yourselves, I am an entrepreneur. Like, it doesn't matter if you're in a band. Don't minimize it. Don't undermine it. That's one thing that always bothered me about dealing with other musicians. That's basically why I can't really be under a band or a band title. I have a hard time doing that, because it's never equal. I've never seen it be equal. It's never, equal amount of effort, equal amount of creativity. There's a really there's a really discouraging statistic I'll share with you that I just heard. The square root of your employees do half the work. And so I want you guys to think about that as far as your bands are concerned. Okay, so the square root of your band, or the square root of your company, does half the work. So we'll start with just like a round number. If we do 9, say you've got 9 people in your company, or you got, I don't know, say you're a huge band, you've got 9 people in your band, you're like a big funk soul band or something. That means that the square root of 9 is 3, and so 3 people do half the work. And then those numbers get really terrifying the bigger the number gets, because if you have 100 employees, then that means 10 people do half the work. And if you have 10,000 employees, then 100 people do half the work. Those numbers are not great. So that's where I've always felt like it's always, it's not ever really equal. So I don't really like to play those games. That's why I write my songs. I do everything, and then I tend to just bring players in, and then the players either believe in the music and want to do it, or they end up being kind of like a hired gun mentality, and then I'll play with them for a while, but eventually I have to break off from them, because I think I said in my last one, I'm trying not to deal with people that are transactional with me. It's just about money, or maybe it's just about, sometimes it's not even about money. Sometimes they just want a platform. They just want a platform they just want a platform for themselves. Let me put it that way. So, anyways, I worked too hard, and I've built a brand, and I've done all this hard work, and I haven't done it just so people can come in and kind of use it and abuse it, and then get paid, but then they don't even put the time into the practicing. So I'm not going to go on a big rant about the band management stuff on this one, because what I really wanted to do was tell you guys, basically do a quick breakdown of what this past year has been like for me, because I'm coming up. This is basically gonna be, I think this is like my 1 year anniversary coming up here for running a podcast, and I'd like to do a little bit of a 1 year breakdown, just to show you guys a little bit, tell you guys a little bit about the progress that I've made in a year since I've decided to actually put some energy into this. So just to start out, I talked about doing a podcast for 2 years before I actually did it. So I was like I think most people tend to fall into that category. But I definitely had that drive, that sense to do this. And just to throw a quick shout out, I tend to throw a shout out to Timmer Blakely. Timmer's a really good guy. If you guys don't know who he is, check him out. He has a record label called Lightning in a Bottle Records. He's out of Portland. And I actually got him on the phone one day because I saw him building his record label, and I just from afar, just watching him do his thing, just from watching on Facebook, spying on him. But I really liked what he was doing, and every once in a while I would see somebody chime in and say something challenging or something negative. It just cracked me up, because the guy is doing like a really good thing. I mean, he's bringing artists together. He's creating an umbrella, and it's nothing but good. So anyways, every once in a while I see some fucking troll try to troll him, and I end up contacting him just to be like, hey man, I see what you're doing. I texted him, exchanged phone numbers, we got each other on the phone eventually, and I got to tell him that, hey look, I see what you're doing, and I gave him some pats on the back and some words of encouragement, because one thing that, even though maybe he's not getting hate, he's not, it's not like he's getting words of encouragement either. Something to think about. So I was like, I have to give this guy some, like, hey man, I've been there. I started a record label, I've tried doing it, and I really thought what he was doing was commendable. And so, anyways, we get into this really great conversation, and because I talk so much and I'm pretty good at articulating things for the most part. But he asked me if I knew anything about PROs, which are performing rights organizations, and I've done some episodes on PROs, and I've even talked about this story before. But the point is that he needed to do a PRO clinic because he had a bunch of musicians that are on his label, and he was pulling everybody together, and he was like, can you basically draw me up a proposal of what your seminar would look like? So I drew it up for him, sent it over to him. He's like, this is great, let's do this. So, and I'd never done a seminar or speech like that before. It was cool. I think we had 25 people in there. I mean, everybody chipped in like $5. I mean, it was cool. Made like $100 for talking. Sweet. And so that got me into the whole idea that, oh, I can do this. Not to sound arrogant, but I felt like, and my my business counterpart was with me, and we both felt like, oh, I felt like I crushed it. So we were all jacked up on that for a while, and that's really kind of what pushed me over the edge. It was like, wait a second, I can do this, and I I like to talk. So the point is that I've just in the past year going from talking, kind of playing with the idea for 2 years, and then being asked to do a seminar and actually doing a public speaking event, and then going from that to, oh, I finally did do my first episode. And my first episode was about 10 minutes long. It was an introduction to the micro music business. I decided, okay, I know what I want the podcast to be about. I want it to be about the micro music business, just approaching the music business from a micro mindset instead of some kind of macro big-timey mindset. And to be able to actually make money, enough money to be comfortable, but not trying to be like some sort of I don't know. I don't think you have to be Justin Timberlake to be successful in this. There's different levels of success, and if your goal is ultimate riches, I don't know. That's a different game. But that's not why I wanted to create this podcast. So, to get back to how far I've come, when I started the podcast, I really just had my YouTube channel up because I make music videos, and I didn't pay attention to the subscribers. I didn't pay attention to those numbers at all. I just didn't quite understand the power of the technology. Okay, so unfortunately, I'm still a little bit in the dark ages. But I'm waking up to all of it. So, basically, kind of getting on the ball. And when I started paying attention, I noticed that, and just to give you guys an idea, I had my YouTube channel up for like 9 years, just putting out music videos every once every couple of years or something. I don't know. I think I had like 5 videos up when I really started paying attention last year. So I was only at like 32 subscribers, and I am currently at 87 because, and so I want you guys to just put that into perspective, right? It took me 9 years to get 32 subscribers. because I wasn't paying attention, because I wasn't focused on it. And that went from me going, oh, I need to focus on this. And then once I got hyper focused, I turned that 32 into 87. So I'm on my way to 100. So I've almost tripled that. And that's so I've gone. Oh, I'm sorry. I've doubled that from 32 to almost doubled that, and that's just in a year. So this is where hyper focus really comes into play, and those numbers really show you. It's like when you're not paying attention to stuff, it's like stuff isn't growing. It's not growing. So once I started putting energy and putting hyper focus into it, another part of this, you guys, is like I say that this show is about, or this podcast is about, micro music business and band rescues. And it's funny because I just designed a new podcast logo. I'm not sure if I'm going to use it or not, but I used an AI generator. I basically put in the idea and it kicked it out. So I don't know. It's kind of cool. I'm not sure if I'm going to use it, but what it did was it put a life jacket on a guitar, and I was like, oh, that's appropriate, the band rescue thing. And I was like, that's kind of appropriate because I'm ex-Coast Guard, and so I like that idea. And there's a phrase that we use in the Coast Guard, and it's something that you learn in boot camp. And what they say to us is eyes in the boat. And what eyes in the boat means is you look forward. And the reason why is if you know anything about steering a boat, the boat goes where you're looking. So if you, it's really interesting. You literally, your eyes pick the destination, and that's where the boat goes. So where you want the boat to go is where you have to be looking. That's hyper focus. So eyes in the boat means always looking ahead at where you're trying to get to. Because if you're driving the boat and then you're driving forward, but then you start to kind of gaze to the left a little bit, you start going that way. So hyper focus is really super important. Why am I bringing this up? I want you guys to understand something. If you're a band and you're having a hard time booking your calendar as much as you want, if you're having a hard time getting the dollar amount that you want, I want you guys to put something in perspective, because this is something that I started doing, and it's actually been very, very helpful. There's another type of currency that I think you guys need to start dealing in. And I'm not talking about cryptocurrency. That was on my last episode. I'm not talking about cryptocurrency this time. What I'm talking about is YouTube subscribers. You guys should be building your YouTube channels and getting subscribers, because if you can build your brand, build your band, build your brand, get your YouTube channel going, get your subscribers it takes to monetize, then you have a business. You have a business that you can run without ever leaving the house. And that's just one avenue that you can be successful in, where even if the band breaks up, there's a YouTube channel that's monetized and it's making money. So I think that always looking at cash as the monetary goal, start getting creative with your minds and start thinking of what other types of currency, what other things do you need, that you could consider currency. Well, I consider YouTube subscribers currency, because if you know anything about YouTube subscribers, it's actually hard to get YouTube subscribers. Everybody on YouTube asks everybody, subscribe to my channel. It's like, eventually people don't want to hear that shit. I mean, even me, I'm on YouTube. I watch it. I put videos on it, and I don't even like it. It's like, it's kind of annoying when you're always hearing people, subscribe to my channel, subscribe to, like, people know. People know they can subscribe, but you got to put something that's of value, give them a reason to subscribe. And that's where I think you're going to kill a couple birds with one stone. Maybe 3 birds with one stone. I don't know. One, it'll help you not be so discouraged when you're not making the dollar amount that you really want to be making. Because if you're getting close to the dollar amount that you want, even though you do want to scale, like everybody wants to scale, right? Everybody wants to scale. But if you're getting close to the dollar amount you want, but you can make it up for what you're not getting in subscribers, and you can be building that business on the side, then eventually you'll get to a place where your band won't have to be making money, won't be reliant on making money just by hitting the stage. And I think you guys should start thinking that way more and more, because that's being an entrepreneur. It's literally putting yourself out. And how many places can you put yourself out in at one time? So, there is opportunity to monetize through YouTube, but it's just like anything. You don't need 1 million fans. You need 1,000 hardcore fans. Like, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to find my 1,000 hardcore fans that actually believe in what I'm doing. And because that's what I want. I want people who actually watch this. I don't want biased friends and family members subscribing to my channel because, like, they don't have any interest in the music business. Like, how is that going to benefit me? Okay, well, maybe that number might get me over the edge or whatever, but that's not what I want the majority of my subscribers to be. I want my subscribers to be basically people who don't know me, but they like the message that I'm putting out. That's called unbiased, So it's getting the unbiased vote. Those 1,000 hardcore fans are so much more valuable than your virtual 1 million fans, because that's a real person choosing to go, yeah, I want to be informed about you. Like, they're choosing to be informed. They're choosing to pay attention to the shit that you're putting out, to the content you're putting out. Sorry, it's not shit. Well, actually, a lot of it's shit, but you guys know what I mean. Sorry about my brevities. So look at subscribers as a currency. That's definitely something I would suggest. And keeping your eyes in the boat. That's definitely, because whatever you focus on is what you're going to attain to you. That's what you're going to bring to you. But it takes hyper focus, and that's why I was pointing out, like, I had 32 subscribers in 9 years because I didn't pay attention to it. I didn't, I'm don't get me wrong. I'm glad that I had that many, that many people were choosing to do that. I never asked anybody to subscribe. But then as soon as I started paying attention, then I actually started asking some people. It's like, yeah, my numbers have, almost tripled, in just a year, coming up on a year. So now I want to get into something really quick, you guys. I did a podcast, like I told you, I did a podcast a couple weeks ago, and just letting everybody know that I'm just staying away from alcohol completely, turning all my energy into motivation to get financially successful. And I'm trying to take you guys on the journey with me. I want some of you guys to take the challenge with me. I want you guys to, you know, I mean, just do it for fun because you can always go back to drinking. It'll always be there. You know, the stores aren't going to stop carrying it. It'll always be there. But the point is like, I want to have a lot of fun in this, and I'm already having a lot of fun of it in it because I'm so freaking productive. And I wanted to go over a few things with you guys, just what I've been able to accomplish in the past 6 weeks not drinking. So I started getting on the phone quite a bit and trying to booking gigs, up in Washington State, kind of just everywhere. I've been reaching out, gotten some hooks, not quite some yeses, some yeses, but just put in for a county fair. So I got a lot of irons in the fire as far as gigs. So I went out, I did a bunch of cold calling, sat right here and did it. Did a bunch of cold calling, did a bunch of cold emailing, did some warm calls, did a couple hot calls. So anyways, kind of been crushing it on that front, and now I'm kind of just sitting back waiting for some of these things to start coming in. When you are booking gigs, it's just something to keep in mind. You can make as many phone calls as you want, but just beware that if you do start getting a surgence of calls back, it can get a little bit. You can start cross-contaminating kind of easily because of dates, and scheduling can be a little bit conflicting because you might get people coming in and being like, oh, can you do this date? And you're like, yeah, I think so. And then you got somebody else like, oh, hey, can you do this date? And you're like, oh, no, I just booked that date. And no, well, can you do this date? Well, no. And so sometimes you want to put it out there and, do a handful, but let them, get back to you. You give it some time for people to get back to you before you keep moving forward into more phone calls, because you can really kind of flood yourself. And that's happened where it's just been like, oh, both of those places that I got a hold of want to book me for the same date, and now there's already now I have to choose between one. So anyways, something to think about when you guys are booking gigs. So anyways, let me get back to where I was going with this. So I started kind of crushing it on the phones, doing cold calls and all that good stuff. Excuse me. So I'm pretty much lining my summer up, and I guess it was about a week ago, I was sitting here at the house and I was like, hey, look, we need to start building a Shopify account. We built a Shopify account. I started uploading all different products and all that cool stuff. So I actually have a virtual store that I'm going to be launching. It's not completely launched yet. I've got a couple more details to fill out, but that's getting done. So I have ultimately I've pivoted into merchandise, not just t-shirts. I mean, Shopify allows me to be on all kinds of merchandise. So shoes, backpacks, hats. I mean, almost anything you can think of. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is like you guys, if you start feeling like you're hitting a roadblock with the music or the booking gigs or whatever, just pivot. Take, and if hopefully you guys have branded your band, because if you haven't, figure out your brand, get your brand and your logo down, and then start putting your logo on everything. Because you can literally just start focusing on, oh, I'm going to take my brand and my logo and start putting it on merchandise. And now I can focus on this business, and that's still helping the band. So that's what I'm saying. Like, be creatively pivot to where it's still helping your band. If it's a brand, then it's the band, and if it's the band, then it's the brand. See that, how that works? So anyways, so now I'm like focusing on, clothing and merchandise. And so now it's like, okay, well, now I'm a storefront, and that's really cool. So I got pretty excited about that. And then I started playing around with ChatGPT, because I haven't messed with it at all, you guys. And so I know you're probably going to laugh at me a little bit and be like, wow, get with it, Grandpa. But I started messing around with ChatGPT last week. And I've been sitting on an idea for a children's book for a long time. And I decided that I'm going to go ahead and release that children's book this year. I'm going to actually do this. And so I put the prompt and the idea into ChatGPT, and I helped guide it, basically, exactly what the storyline was. And between the two of us, because it was definitely, I did 85% of the idea on this, and then ChatGPT formatted it and did a very nice professional layout, and worded it a little bit better in some spots. Just it knows what it's doing. It's, oh, this is for a children's book, so it knows some things that I don't know, as far as the context of, this is how this should be. So appropriate speech, things like that. So that was really cool, because there it is, 85-90% of it is literally my words. And then it helped amplify the message. And in fact, my business partner, she was reading it when I was all done. She was reading it, and as she was reading it, she got to the end, and she actually started to cry. And that was to me, that was like a very good sign. I was like, oh, we might have a winner here, so, because it's heartwarming. But I was able to prompt it again and ask it to, make illustrations, and it spit those out. I'm almost done with them. I gotta have it finish up a few more for me. But the point is, like, within a couple hours, we were sitting on a children's book, and I've got it, So I'm going to be uploading that to, I'm not really sure. I think I'm going to go with Book Baby. I think that's the plan right now. I use CD Baby for my music distribution. I was looking into the Book Baby plan, and it looks pretty good. You do pay like, I think if it's gonna just be digital, it's like $300. It's not super cheap, but it's only a one-time fee, and then they never take a piece, from your sales. So to me, that's kind of a cool deal. The other ones, they take a percentage as you sell them, so I'm not really sure which one I'm gonna go with, but right now that's what I'm thinking about. So the point is that, as I'm creating these other products and doing this and that, it starts getting me to get my mind to pivot even more, because right now I'm not at a standstill. I'm developing things with new band members. I'm developing some new songs. I'm getting these new band members familiar with my uh, existing material, and so we've got plenty to work on. In fact, I've got a band practice today. But between that and then I've also have some studio work, some studio dates coming up in the future. So I'm going to be working on a new project this year. And with all of that going on, I'm like, okay, well, I've got that going on. I can do more. So the Shopify thing was really cool because that just blossomed into, oh, hey, I have these ideas for these books. So now I've got a children's book that I just developed. Okay, that'll be out it should be out by Christmas. And then I was like, well, I also have a couple other ideas for a book. One book idea in particular, which I'm not gonna even say what it is right now. I want them in hand, and I actually want them to be available when I announce it, because I think they'll probably do well. I think they'll probably do pretty well. And it is not a children's book. It has more to do with, I'll just say broadly, it has to do with philosophy and music. But I think the marketing behind it and the sales interest of the product is way more refined. It's the specificities. Is that it? Anyway, the specifics of the book is actually where the sales value is. But broadly, it's a combination of philosophy and music marketing. So I'm not giving too much away there, because it's an extremely fun concept that I think I came up with, and I think that it's going to do well, and I think it's going to really, really, really help musicians. I think mental health wise, it's a lot of things that musicians need to hear. This isn't the stuff that you're going to get you're not going to hear this stuff from mom and dad. You're not going to hear this from your friends. You're not going to hear it from even your peers. There's deeper things going on. So anyways, I'm really excited because just in this, past 2 months, basically, I'm sitting on 2 books that I'm going to publish this year. I'm sitting on a whole Shopify store. I'm sitting on a bunch of gigs. I've got a bunch more gig opportunities coming up. I've got studio dates coming up, and I've got some studio opportunities with some hard-hitting players. So I'm not gonna name drop or anything like that. I mean, you guys can find out when I actually drop the music. But I've just got a lot of good opportunities coming my way. I also have a roof job that I landed, that I'm going to be starting next month. So, and that's going to be really good money. So I've got all of these things that are happening, all of these things that are branching out. And as I was playing, just to let you guys know, like, I'm not even done because what I started to do is, because I got my Shopify account going, and I got my logo on a bunch of products. Me and my buddy Jeff, we do this thing where we call each other every morning, and we call it the the morning comedy routine, or and for some reason our minds are in extremely goofy places in the morning, and the jokes that come out and the way we kind of feed off of each other, and we come up with some of our best ideas that way, our comedy ideas. And so the other day I had him on the phone, and I had Chat GPT, and I was telling him, like, yeah, this, I've been basically creating all kinds of fun stuff with Chat GPT. And he's like, oh, yeah, man. He's like, we should start plugging some of these ideas of ours into it and see what it comes up with as far as visuals. And so we did. We just started putting all of our comedy ideas into it. And I'd be like, make me a poster for this movie, and a movie idea that we have, or make us a poster for this reality TV show idea that we have. And anyways, I've been having a lot of fun with that, because the things that have been coming out of it are absolutely hilarious. And Jeff, in the process of this, he goes, these are t-shirts. And he's like, you got your Shopify account already started? He's like, these are t-shirts. So now we're getting into some of some comedy, and doing kind of funny, I guess not really gag shirts, but kind of. I guess it's kind of in the gag department, which doesn't sound good at all. The gag department. It sounds like a room at the Diddy house. Oh yeah, just go through that door. That's our gag department. Anyways, yeah. So now I'm like branching off into some comedy and getting that onto merchandise. Some of those images onto merchandise, and it's really cool. It's really cool, you guys. I'm just throwing these ideas out because I want you guys to start thinking about how you can be creative, have fun doing it, make money. And there's something called the Pareto distribution that when you're doing something that's a creative endeavor, the slope on it, the productive slope on it, it looks like this, right? So it does this for a really long time, and then it starts to kind of go like this, and then it goes straight up. Okay, so that's the curve. That's of any productive, or I'm sorry, any creative endeavor has that curve to it. And the reason why it's so flat, and it doesn't really feel like, it's just a very tiny ramp up through time. It's because it doesn't hit that point of escalation. It doesn't hit that with, it's the repetition of doing something over and over and over and over and over. And what happens is, if you do something over and over and over, just continually, it gets to a point where you've basically mastered it, and that's when you start seeing that incline of success. Because when things are distributed, usually things are on a distribution level that's pretty even, but it's actually through repetition of the same thing that there's an uneven distribution, and things stack up at zero. And that's why you get that big, huge spike, because it's through repetition that the game continues to go and go and go. And so the person who stays in the game the longest actually wins. And for us, the game is just not quitting. Because even when you don't feel like like you get to a point, those points where you feel like, why am I doing this? I don't feel like I'm getting ahead. Because it's because you're on that Pareto distribution where you're the the progress you're making is so small it doesn't feel like you're making progress. But then through time, it's through time and that repetitive nature, that repetitive action over and over and over, and not quitting. And it's the person who stays in the longest. That's when the Pareto distribution starts to really happen. Something I've noticed because I'm still in the game, and my career is getting better. Um, I came from a place where, like, I was homeless and trying to get. I was actually homeless and trying to put my band together at the same time. That's how, you know, that's how I guess determined I am. Is that I refused to quit even when I was homeless. I was like thinking about the band. When's the next band practice? So it was also the thing that kind of got me through homelessness. So, but that determinism, it's just something that's always been a part of me, and I just refuse to quit. And even though it doesn't feel like we're making a lot of progress, remind yourselves, oh, I'm on that Pareto distribution, and I'm still in the game. I've corrected a lot of things that were wrong. Like I put out, I mean, just to be straight up, I put out a bad product. Um, you know, I put out a couple bad products. My first product was basically like a home demo that I packaged it up like, I was in the Coast Guard at the time. I actually thought that I was gonna end up being like a career Coast Guard guy, and I would never have a chance to even make a record. So I made one in my house, not really knowing what I was doing, and it turned out pretty good. It turned out okay for somebody that didn't know what they were doing, and I'm glad I did that because that made me continue to do it and get better at it. And I put out some pretty good stuff, but it's been a challenge. I've put out some bad stuff, and I've gone around. 95% of the gigs that I've done, I slay. There was a time where I had a couple off gigs. Those off gigs, you have no idea how detrimental those off gigs can be. But luckily, with time, people tend to forget. But there's always hurdles, there's always things that don't quite go right. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because just don't quit. Because there were people that I was sharing the stage with back in those days where I was kind of struggling. I was having a harder time keeping my band together, keeping good players. It was rough. But I kept doing it, and I was sharing the stage with people that were obviously they had their shit together way more than me, but they're not around anymore. They quit the game. So, and I'm still in it. So that's what you guys need to remember. This is long game kind of shit, and when you stay in the long game, that's when you hit that arc, when it starts to spike up. But it's time, so it's repetition, and never quitting. So it's probably gonna end up being my new mantra, just like pop star, never stop, never stopping. But anyways, it really is. It's like if you want to hit that arc, that rocket ship up on the Pareto distribution, it's about not quitting. So thanks for hanging out with me, you guys. I feel good about this one. So I got a couple more ideas that I'm working on. I had some people respond to me recently about some of the episodes. I actually got a request for an episode, which I love. Please, if you guys would do me the favor and subscribe. I know it's cheesy, but I love you forever. Subscribe and like if you would, and just keep watching because I've got some really cool stuff coming up here in the near future. And anyways, I always appreciate you guys hanging out with me, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.